a very weird question, and that is, do they give Prime Day discounts on
Uh,
Caskets?
I
Would that be a case? Sales must be going high on a software company where the software was so expensive that even if the e-commerce manager or e-commerce founder was earning good, but all the money was going back into the for paying for that software. I'm trying hard not to name it.
$1 bid, okay, fine, but $1 campaign budgets? Are you serious?
Tracks
Like,
everything, and it actually shows you the graph. His whole point was it shows you the graph of the rank track, and I was like, just give me 5 minutes on Looker Studio, just give me. And that's what I did. I just did it in
work with
5 minutes.
Nestle's R&D team where they launch new products, and when they launch, they think of themselves as a startup incubator where different teams in Nestle, they will pitch their new product and the team has to decide whether to invest in it or not. So one big piece of it
So
is
Nestle Shark Tank.
Nestle Shark Tank, very accurate reports on how each competitor is ranking with each keyword.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, this is 100% amazing, but two problems. One, about 60% of the time, the data they're showing is wrong. So
Yeah.
if this keyword is indexed with that product, when you actually go and check, it is not the case, not even
Yes.
close. So that is one problem that they have.
How many products does XENA Intelligence offers? Because you talked about advertising one. I saw the listing one as well. It was really great. And what other
A lot of activities that were very repetitive in nature. One was obviously listing. It was the same,
Yep.
but you have to do it again and again. You have to improve it. Keyword analysis was very repetitive. Ad optimization is very repetitive, where you have a lot of knowledge and then you'll have to translate that into something that continuously.
Hi Akhil, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for inviting me, Adil.
Thank you so much for coming. So how's it going?
Things are going good, as you all know, especially in the e-commerce space where things are heating up really good. And but more than the work, I think it's great that I get to meet people like you who have built, of course, the businesses that you work with, but also a very strong personal brand, which I personally admire. I think e-commerce is perhaps one
Thank
of
you
the
so
only
much. Yeah.
places where you can build, you can take effort, learn things on your own, and build something great that I think
Yeah.
you have done pretty well.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna take your first comment and go with it. Is that things in e-commerce space are heating up, but you have seen that right after COVID ended, I think the first wave ended. We saw a little bit of slowdown in the e-commerce space as well. If you remember. So yeah. So how was that time period for you guys?
It definitely heated up during the pandemic. There was a whole lot of activity. There's a lot of
Yeah.
VC funding that came into the picture. So the lot of software companies started coming up. A lot of agencies, as you're well aware, realized
Yeah.
that technology is the way to go. So they invested a lot in technology. I think one good example of that is, my Amazon guy, Stephen Pope. I
Yeah.
admire him quite a bit because of the work that he has built. I think he has publicly stated that he invested $2 million in building a software
Yeah.
to help his advertising, but it did not work out. And I think
Work.
that
Yeah.
with a lot of companies where they realize that technology is a play, but he realized his expertise is in those one-on-one services,
Yeah.
and that kind of gives an indication what the boost was during the pandemic. But then there was a not a crash, but there was a slowdown as well after that.
Yeah. Slow down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I've seen is things are actually picking up better as well. I think after the elections that are happening in November, economy is gonna boost up again. What are your thoughts on that? And then we are gonna talk about Xena Technologies, intelligence. Yeah.
Politics is a very hot topic right now, as you can
Yeah.
imagine. The US,
Yeah.
lot of anxiety around both
Yeah.
the parties, lot of anxiety around the market and how it will get affected when one gets elected over the other. But regardless of that, I've seen definitely, like you said, the slowdown is over. Now things are picking up. More brands are getting launched more than ever before. More brands are becoming successful than ever
Yeah.
before. Less number of brands are closing down because they have had easy access to expertise, to softwares, to learning that has become even more accessible to a lot of brands. So I think that is a good thing. As more smaller brands, passive income earners, solo entrepreneurs get an opportunity to understand what needs to be done to grow the brand, but also understand the risks involved in growing the brand that they work. So with the oncoming elections, it is definitely a question of how the market will respond, whether there'll be a recession, whether there'll be a job burst. Regardless of what happens, I think personally, given everything that has happened, e-commerce will remain strong, and especially
Yep.
like people like you, me, and a lot of others who are helping brands grow. I think that
Yeah.
market will not just continue, but it will continue to grow as well.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And can you tell me a little bit about, Xena Intelligence? How did you get the idea to, start this? And, what was the main thought and founding thought of it?
Sure, yeah. So before I came to the US about 6 years ago, I was in India. So in India, I used to work with a media company called HT Media, Hindustan Times. They are about 100, 150 years old. They are India's second largest
Nice.
media firm after Times of India. And they had newspapers and radio stations and all kinds of media assets. So I was working in the e-commerce space. But since they were, a status quo company, they were an old company, I realized that, my talents might perhaps be more useful in a startup environment. So then I got an opportunity to come to the US to join a college called Babson College in Boston. They are known for entrepreneurship. They're known to help international students. So I came over here, and then I realized that in the US everything is obviously very expensive, especially for international students. There are restrictions around what you can and cannot do work wise, and so I realized that I might be able to do something on my own, where I started working with a lot of small businesses around Boston where I was. And so that's how I started a consulting firm with them. But then when I started working with them, I realized that there were a lot of activities that were very repetitive in nature. One was obviously listing. It was the same,
Yep.
but you have to do it again and again. You have to improve it. Keyword analysis was very repetitive. Ad optimization is very repetitive, where you have a lot of knowledge and then you'll have to translate that into something that continuously needs to improve. And so I started testing out a few softwares in the market to help my customers, but I couldn't find any that were either effective or not very expensive or easy to understand. So that's where I got the idea for Xena Intelligence, where I built it for my customers at that point. But then I realized that it was so effective and it was so helpful that I wanted to expand. And so we started expanding soon after. So that's how Xena Intelligence came into the picture.
That's pretty awesome. And you're right, a lot of good softwares are so expensive that, and I have seen it firsthand as well. We used to work with, a software company where, the software was so expensive that, even if the e-commerce manager or e-commerce, founder was earning good, but, all the money was going back into the, for paying for that software. I'm trying hard not to name it.
Everyone knows what we are talking about. Yeah.
So yeah, some softwares are really good, but they break your back. So in the end, it's not worth it if you are not making profit, because every business, the center of business is making profit. So if you are not profitable, then what's the use of it? So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And
So
yeah, another aspect, like as you would know, and I'm sure you would have used different softwares as well. Software is great. You can tell it what to do, it will do it without taking a rest. But I think there is, because e-commerce is changing so often, it is also important to have that, or have a way to have the human intelligence into, if not into a software, but alongside a software, where
yeah,
a software on its own, there is, it might work for 1 or 2 weeks, but then if you don't know how to control it, how to
yeah,
improve,
yeah.
there is very little that you can do to grow.
Yeah. So how does Xena Intelligence helps people with the human mind and mixing it up with the software?
So it's continuous improvement. It's very simple. I don't think it's rocket science. So when Xena began 3 years ago, it was a very simple rule based system that I think a lot of softwares now do that, where if clicks equal to something, if
Yeah,
click to rate equal to something, then increase bid by 20%. It
yeah,
used to be a very simple thing, and I think 99% of the ad optimization software still do that, which is pretty easy. Anyone can build it. It does not require any intelligence. But then I think then we started keeping on improving it with time. So for example, first thing we realized that the same rules will not apply to every category. So food category is different from a first aid category, different from a pet category. So the same rule
yeah,
cannot apply. So it needs to be different. The same rule cannot be applied to even the same variants, even in some
yeah.
cases. where if it is an expensive product, then it should be a different type of rule. So then we
Yeah.
started improving it. So that is done. Then we realized that the rule itself does not work all the time. So for one example is we work with a brand called Titan Caskets. They sell caskets, like real life human caskets,
Oh yeah.
on
Oh
Amazon. It is they're one of the market leaders. There are not a lot of brands that sell that, and it's surprising that people are actually buying caskets online, because in the US usually they buy it from funeral homes, or uh,
yep.
is one of those things that you don't buy it usually, only when there is a death in the family. So one thing that they we realized that, since each casket costs like $1,500, then the question becomes like, how much are you willing to spend on ads? Like if we
Yep.
spend $10 versus $500, the chance of a conversion in $500 is higher than $10, but the cost of
Yep.
the product is so high that it makes it worth spending that much. So
Yep.
then realize that it is not just category, it is also product type, it is also reviews is a big thing
Yep.
that affects the challenge. So as things moved along, we started improving these different aspects. Obviously there's a long way to go, but we feel that given how many customers have been with us for years, and how low of a churn rate we have, we are very confident that even though we have not reached the endpoint, the process of continuously improving is what differentiates us from others.
Yeah. So yeah, I just got a very weird question, and that is, do they give Prime Day discounts on
Uh,
caskets?
I
Would that be a case? Sales must be going high on Halloween days, when it's Halloween, so people are just buying
I
caskets
mean it
just
it
for
is
display, just for display purposes.
a lot of interesting data. So I've NDA, so I won't reveal everything, but
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
there is, you would be surprised that there is a yearly trend, and certain months the sales goes up, certain months it does not go down, certain months a certain color sells more. So I'm like, who cares about the color
Yeah,
of a casket? Not the user, because the user is
yeah, yeah,
right. But it is very interesting, and there's just one example. I'm sure every product category has something very interesting that you realize, and you're like, oh man, this is fascinating things to
yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting category to be in, and working for, you know, uh, because whenever you start a business, you do a whole research on it. So I'm just thinking about the research paper they were reading.
I have, I mean, they are the market leaders. The reviews
Yeah,
also, like, I was surprised, and it's one of those products where people buy it when they need it. Nobody
yeah,
wants to look for it. So the reviews are very touching. Like, it's one of those products where you see that, hey, I faced a loss in my family. It was very expensive outside, but then I found them,
yeah,
and it helped me during a difficult time. So it feels good that, whatever work you're doing is making people's lives better, and it is providing them relief from a time when it is very hard for them. So I think
yeah,
it's one of the examples of where, like, I've felt that whatever technology we are building, whatever AI we are building, it's fine, but if it results in people's lives getting better, I think that there's nothing like it.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And just on the another note, on a very lighter side, that is, Bradley Sutton, the helium 10. Yeah. So he actually used to sell. They were caskets, but they were like desk casket like desks. So
Joke.
these were yeah. So you could, they were 4 by 4, or yeah, I guess 3 by 3, that you could put for as shelves. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's a pretty good emo theme as well. But yeah, for the serious ones, obviously that's a very serious thing. But yeah.
It is, I mean, and Amazon, I think you can buy a house on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, these days.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that video as well, where you can pre-order a home, and then it's a like, and also it's a DIY home. Like, that is another level of issues where you
Mhm.
do you do DIY projects or not?
I love to, yeah, I do some DIY products. That's why I find, like, again, oh, there's another example, not really DIY, but somewhat. So one of our customers, they sell at home testing kits for male fertility. So
Okay,
again, very unique product, and that device you can have like a video screen. It will actually test the sperm motility, and it will
okay,
it will give an indication of if there are any problems with it. So before we came, they used to advertise it as, wow, this is like a manly product, show you're a man, and you rhino and muscles and
Yeah,
beer and all that. But then the sales were like not that great, and so then we came and
yeah.
we did some research. Our software showed us that most of the customers were females, like 70%. So it is the
Oh,
women who are buying the male test and not the males themselves. So we changed the branding. We made it lighter. We made it like softer. We showed more family related images in the A
yeah,
plus,
yeah,
and then it kind of like took off really really highly, and now they're the market leaders again. So I think that's one example where e-commerce is a good indicator of um, what people really need as opposed to what you
yeah.
think people need.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good one as well, because sometimes you think people are buying it for that reason, but it's not it's the other reason. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. And also, I also think that men would be very hesitant to test their own sperm, because
Right.
like, yeah,
That is
it's a very manly issue that yeah. At the same time, I don't want to test it.
it is yeah, it is, but it affects a lot of people, and a lot of people are,
Yeah,
it is something that worries a lot of people. And so I think when women buy it, I think it kind of makes more sense for them.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. Okay, so moving on from so tell me how many products does XENA Intelligence offers? Because you talked about advertising one. I saw the listing one as well. It was really great. And what other features does it have?
So we have few more features. There are few in the pipeline as well. So our thinking is that running an e-commerce brand is hard. You have to think of so many things: supply chain, money, vendors,
Yep,
advertisement, different marketplaces. So our goal is to help them as much as possible. There is some help you can give on a one-on-one basis as consultants, or
yep,
as a hands-on manager. There are few things that could be helpful for them without having someone involved, like a human involved. One was listing optimization, which we felt very strongly, where we do a
yep,
lot of keyword research. We use our expertise, we use our brain to decide what the listing should be. But that can be automated to an extent, especially at scale. Like if you're managing 20,000 SKUs, one person cannot spend time in each of them. So that is where we
yep,
release Xena Foresight, where if you connect your Amazon account, it will automatically do keyword research, competitive research, and it will make the listing as SEO friendly as possible. And it will do that continuously every day, every week, as much as it's needed. So that is one. The second pain point we realized was images. So images take a lot of time. It requires a lot of experience, usually very expensive if it is done in the US. And it is something that needs to be optimized as well. And there needs to be data behind the images that need to be done. So because of the new technologies, we can generate images through AI. Obviously, it's not as good
yep.
can be, but that is something that we are building internally, where using all the data, maybe we can help build product images, A plus content and stuff like that as well. It's not released yet, but I think that's something that will help a lot of people going forward as well.
Yeah, the rate at which AI is advancing forward, I think this is like photography is possible. There might be a little bit of there might be some products that could not be done it properly, because there are some products that are actually so unique in the category that you cannot replicate it. But other than that, for daily products, or for some home other products, you can easily do it. And also on your point, going back to the first point that you said about the listing, that's what I noticed, and that's what very less people talk about is you need to optimize the listing almost every month or every 2 months, because every 2 months you are getting a new competitor who is, I don't know how they do it, but they find a new point that is such a good one that you are like, why didn't I think of that earlier?
True.
So
That is
so yeah,
true.
that's very important that you keep optimizing it. Yeah, that makes a lot
That's
of
true.
sense.
And you spoke about AI as well. So, obviously every company, every agency, everyone wants to say, okay, now we are using AI. But practically what they're doing, they're using ChatGPT API somewhere in
Yeah,
the process, calling it
yeah,
AI. So one example is yesterday I was doing an audit for a new customer. And so they were working with another agency who I think were using a very famous software that is out there. So we could go through the change history, right? We can see exactly what.
Yeah.
My God. So they had their ROAS was point 0.1 after 5 months of starting. I'm like, what are you, after 5 months, point 0.1 ROAS, what are you doing? Anyway, so I'm like, okay, fine. It was a beverage company, very competitive
Okay.
space, but good branding, good images, good
Yeah.
everything. Point 0.5. Good reviews also. They had like 100 good reviews. So I'm like, why is this point 0.5? Like, it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
And then I looked into the change history. So they were like 5 campaigns running. And yesterday night, they changed the each campaign had a budget of I think $30 each. They changed $30 to $1, all of them. And I'm like, $1 campaign budget, it doesn't make any sense. Like, what is the
Yeah.
point of running a campaign with like $1 daily budget?
Yeah.
And so then I realized they must have set some rule where if the ACOS
Day
is,
parting rule. Yeah.
yeah, what is $1? Like, would you just
Yeah.
pause it completely, or
Yeah.
don't, or try something new? So I think it's one of those situations where whoever is managing it, maybe they don't understand the limits to which it goes. And so I
Yeah.
think this is why you need a human to realize that $1 campaigns are useless, like that it will not do anything
Yes.
for you. $1 bid, okay, fine, but $1 campaign budgets, are you serious? Like, it's just one of those
Yeah.
situations where you need a human touch
To understand it. Yeah.
along with this one as well.
So a lot of softwares that are out there, when the first they started like advertising it as you won't need any human to manage it. It will manage it automatically and it will be done. So a lot of people, like I remember, like I got so many clients like this. They were saying that, do you know that software? I used to say yes, I'm working on it, and they used to say I implemented it, and in the first week it was really good. And then what happened was it started doing this kind of shady stuff. And I'm actually worse than when I had a
Mhm.
VA or someone else managing, or even when they were themselves managing it, it was very better. But now it's gone worse, because that's the thing with AI. It can actually, if it tells, it keeps going that way as well. So yeah.
That is, yeah, that's very good point. And the secondly as well, so when we work with new customers, they're like, hey, we are using this software, we do this for
Yeah.
keyword research, we do this for there is a soft, I don't want to name it, but they give reports on how each competitor is ranking with each keyword.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, this is 100% amazing, but two problems. One, about 60% of the time the data they're showing is wrong. So
Yeah.
if this keyword is indexed with that product, when you actually go and check, it is not the case, not even
Yes.
close. So that is one problem that they have.
Yeah.
Second problem, the data that they're showing in some cases can be easily accessed directly from Amazon, brand retail or
Yeah.
brand analytics. In some cases, if you know what you're doing. So
Yeah.
then what are you paying? Like, if you're paying for accuracy, okay, fine. But there is no accuracy, plus the data is supposed to be free. So then,
Yeah.
like, what are you? So that concerns me quite a bit.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of yeah, that is gonna go very specific. Like I remembered one thing, like our CEO visited us in like in March, and he was talking about like buying this very expensive software, and he was saying, because it tracks everything and it actually shows you the graph. His whole point was it shows you the graph of the rank track. And I was like, just give me 5 minutes on Looker Studio, just and that's what I did. I just did it in 5 minutes, and he was like, "Okay, cool. No, I'm not gonna buy it." And I was like, "Thank you."
That is,
So
yeah, that there is a lot of lack of knowledge, lack of information. I'm not blaming the other software companies; they're trying to help,
yeah,
which they should. But I think like it's important to know that a lot of the services that are available in the e-commerce space can be achieved at a very very low cost.
yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true as well. So, can you tell more about like for since you have been alive for 3 years, how has it shaped? Like you have seen downturns, you have also seen some, you might have faced issues as well. You might have seen some really good experiences as well. Can you share some of that?
Sure. Yeah. As a company, we have obviously worked with different types of companies. So right now we are working with more than 55 brands. So in the
Nice.
early stages, obviously we were like okay to work with anybody because we wanted to
Yeah.
gain information knowledge, and we are
Yeah.
starting like we will not be signing a
Yeah.
Nestle at that time. And so we started working with a lot of brands. Some of them became very, very successful. They're still our customers at this point. Some of them obviously
Awesome.
did not work out. And as we started getting more reputation, more brand, and more results, we started getting more customers. So now we are working with Nestle as well as a lot of other successful brands as well. But at that time, when I'm thinking back, if somebody were to ask me like, "Hey, Akhil, I want to launch a brand right now. What should I not do?" If somebody asked me that, and because I've seen brands fail, I think one important aspect that people don't realize that advertisement is great, images are great, but if you don't have a very distinct cost advantage to your product, it will not survive. If you are not
Yeah,
able to get your product at the lowest possible cost that anyone on this world can get, then your product will not survive, because there'll be somebody else who will be launching a product if it becomes successful. So I
yeah.
think that is one learning that I've realized, that if no matter how much money you have, no matter how much you use all the softwares in the world, it will not work unless you have a cost advantage. Is what I've realized.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I have seen, a lot of people come to me and they have, like I have to say no to a lot of people because they're launching exactly same product and they are not even going into, they're like I would call it sourcing it intelligently, where if you are getting someone from, if you're getting your supplier from, first page of, Alibaba, then you
Mhm.
are not actually doing it because it happens like you have to call so many people and like it sourcing from China is another huge topic where you actually have to understand that there is something that they show on the website and then there is a sourcing that happens behind and stuff like that. So even sourcing, I personally think that sourcing the people who are advertising it or who are on Alibaba are like third sourcers and they have to call back on a warehouse and ask for the inventory if it's available or not. So yeah, you have to go into very layers and deep layers to get the good cost, or otherwise your Chinese competitors will eat you. Yeah,
That is a big issue for this, and a lot of people, like, they watch videos of like Amazon experts saying, "Oh,
yeah,
you'll be a millionaire in 30 days, look at my data." They don't show you ad
yeah,
data. They show you sales,
yeah,
where everyone can show like that uptick in a
yeah,
lot of time. I think that misleads a lot of people into buying courses that are not people who are honest with them. And so that kind of makes me feel very sad that a lot of people are wasting their money on something before they fully understand the risks involved.
yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, Akhil, so do tell me this, that obviously you have good experience with the client, bad experience with the client. What about the employees as well? Like when
Mhm.
you had to put them on remote employees and when the COVID was happening, how did you manage to build the company with the pace that you have during the COVID times?
I think I personally got very lucky with a set of people that are loyal. They are extremely experienced in terms of being able to learn new things. So just to give you an idea, again, because we started from zero, we had to build a team that is not in the US because I couldn't afford it at that time.
Yeah,
So I started building in India, in Cochin, where my hometown is, and so I had some connections there, and so I hired my first employee, who joined, who's still my employee, is head of India operations right now. And it was for 3 4 months. It was just me and him talking on Zoom. Oh, we have
yeah,
one meeting in a week. Oh wow, we have to convert it somehow. Oh my god, all that discussion we used to happen, and that he was the person who was responsible for hiring the other set of people to join and thing. And of course, at that time, it was very difficult for us to hire someone who's already experienced. So we hired
yeah,
someone brand new who had no idea about e-commerce, and they learned along the way,
yeah,
and now obviously become experts in it. So I think that trust was played a big role in making sure that they are still with us. And second, the trust that even though they don't know anything about e-commerce, they're able to learn along the way. I think that
yeah.
trust is pretty important in terms of building the team. I'm sure you would have experienced that as well.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next question, that you have said that bringing experienced person was not feasible for you at that time. But I think that it's also a question as well, that if you bring an experienced person and then you teach him XENA Intelligence, software and stuff like that, that is essentially starting him from scratch, because he has to unlearn everything that he has, and if those habits stay, then it's actually loss for the company as well.
That is true. That is 100% true. So if I was to join Zira right now, I would be like, I would have to unlearn everything and then
Yeah,
learn everything. And it's not just about learning one software, right? It's about learning the culture of the company,
yeah,
how you deal with good times and bad times, how
yep,
you deal with customer. I think these are a lot of human level learning as well. Like when you talk to customers, there is a way that you talk to them.
yep.
There's a way that you respond to them, which I think it also takes a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very true. And also, if you build a really good culture, the employees stay with you for a long time as well. So, do tell me what's in the. You did tell me that what's in the pipeline. Like you guys are, going for the photography stuff and like that as well. Like, are you planning to expand it further? Like, how many marketplaces are you guys are in right now?
So right now, most of our customers are in the US, and some of them have asked our help in expanding to North America, Canada, and Mexico as well.
Yep.
Since our team is in India, we also got a few inbound interests from I think around 5 different Indian brands. Few of them
Nice.
wanted to sell in the US, some of them wanted to expand in India itself. And India has another e-commerce marketplace called Flipkart, which is owned by
Yeah.
Walmart,
Yeah.
and it's a very similar concept to this. We also got interest from the Middle East, from UAE specifically. There was one customer who was in Noom, and so we told him that we don't know anything about Noom. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of similarities with Amazon and
Yep.
Flipkart and Walmart, and so they were kind enough to like, hey, we'll give you a test account, like we'll give you access to the account, just
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
and then help along the way. I think that just shows where people are trusting enough, where they
Yep.
understand that e-commerce is same anywhere in the world. The optimization
Yep.
is same, the logic is the same. Maybe the rules and the numbers are slightly different, but the logic, the experience is the same throughout. And so we are actively looking to expand further into the Indian marketplace as well and the Middle East as
Nice, nice, nice. That makes a lot of sense as well. But at the same time, what we noticed, like what I have noticed in my personal experience is that when
well.
you're working for US account and then you move to suddenly you open the UK account, the keywords are different. Like you, the English changes so quickly. So I'm sure that it's same for the India as well, for the Indian marketplace as well.
100%. Very different, very different in the Indian marketplace. So, for example, holiday times, right? During Diwali is when
Yeah,
India, it's like India's Prime Day, basically
yeah,
speaking.
yeah,
It is massive. And so,
yeah,
if you're not aware of these different small nuances, Raksha Bandhan is a big one
yeah,
where if you're not in India, you won't know this is a big deal.
yeah.
And for gifting and food products and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's a very similar equivalency in different parts of the world as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. And also, uh, like you are working on Amazon and you talked about, moving to a different, for example, Flipkart and Noon and other stuff as well. Well, how about Shopify or, WordPress websites, just helping out the website e-commerce brands that are working in that space, or you guys are not interested in that?
Well, I don't know about interest, but a lot of our customers have
Yeah,
asked us where, hey, you're doing on Amazon, please can you help us on Shopify,
yeah,
Google
yeah,
Ads, TikTok ads? So we tell them like we are no expert in Google and TikTok ads, though we manage like more than 10 different Google accounts. We tell that our
yeah,
software works really well on Amazon. It can work in Google, but obviously everything is different. Rules are different.
yeah,
CPC
yeah,
is different. But they come to us and say that, hey, please help us out. So then we have decided, okay, let's start working, building that capability as well, where we have API integrations with Shopify and WordPress and Magento and all these other platforms, and of course Walmart, Flipkart, and stuff like that. So I think it's because of that need where we have already expanded to all these platforms, and it's just a matter of time where we are able to claim that we are the best in those platforms as well.
yeah. That's pretty interesting as well, because once you are able to get everything in one space and then manage it, that actually gives you so much data as well, because data is a big aspect of everything, where if you have enough data, you are able to predict as well, and you are able to understand why something is happening and what were the similar circumstances that you had before that the same thing happened. So yeah, data is very important there as well. So yeah. I'm thinking about it from data's perspective that if you have these things, you can optimize it a little bit better, where you can see the Google trends as well, you can see the Amazon trends as well.
Not just that, I think data can also be used for more use cases like launching new products.
Yeah.
So for example, we work with Nestle's R&D team where they launch new products, and when they launch they think of themselves as a startup incubator where different teams in Nestle, they will pitch their new product and the team has to decide whether to invest in it or not. So one big piece of it
So
is
Nestle Shark Tank.
Nestle Shark Tank, very accurate. But one thing they don't have is the e-commerce data. So they have
Okay.
retail data from Gartner and Kantar and all this, but e-commerce data is very, it is not easily accessible. So then
Yeah, yeah,
we are managing more than 100,000 different SKUs. We have more than enough data for almost all the product categories on
yeah.
Amazon. Why don't we help you out in doing market research for any new product category? So if you're launching a noodles brand, for example, we can give you the data of the top selling noodles brand, what the market size is, what the pricing is, yearly seasonality,
Yeah, yeah.
ad spend, everything we can share. So that's how we are working with Nestle, and I think there's a lot of use case where this knowledge can be used by companies to understand the market they're getting into as well.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting as well, because usually, the course sellers, when they teach you the product sourcing or product hunting, they don't tell you that you have to do so much research in the market, and you have to figure out what that 3 year or 5 year timeline is going to be for a product. I have seen a lot of products that are good for 3 months only, and then they do take off. They take off for 3 months, and then they die. And then the person who has started it 3 months ago, and he's first shipment has reached and he has sold some products. The second shipment is on the way, and the product is dead now.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. Like again, people don't realize how much money and time they have to invest, even if it is the
Yeah,
simplest of product. And then even after that, you have to do a lot of things correctly.
yeah,
It's a very interesting space.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense as well.
No, you don't have to. So I had a question for you as well. So you obviously have worked for, I think, about 10 years in this space.
Yep, yep,
Uh,
about a decade.
you have built a strong reputation for the companies you work with, also for yourself. I'm sure you work with different product categories. If you were to launch a product right now, what category would it be in, just based on top of your head, and what product would it be, and how would it be differentiated from others in the market?
So, to be very honest, what I have thought about this, and what I wanna do is I wanna do FBM, and I wanna launch a product that is already like that is like the wooden products that are built in US. Like if I wanna start in US, I'll have the wooden products that are built in US and then shipped locally in around the spaces as well. And the reason being is, like, if you do this, you eliminate 90% of the competitors in the marketplace, because those are your Chinese counterparts that are there. So even if it's a small product as well, where you have to do it FBM, because doing FBA is very costly. Because, for example, the product that actually I was shocked to see, a client came into us for an audit, and we did an audit for it. It was in UK marketplace. They were selling set of chairs, set of lawn chairs, and their CPC was 0.25 for their keywords, not for the pet, for
Hmm.
their keywords. And I was like, how can this be? Because there were like eight competitors or seven competitors there. Because set of eight chairs, lawn chairs, nobody can ship it from US or Canada or
Hmm.
from China to
Hmm.
UK. And yeah, so that was very interesting for me. And then I realized that if you go bigger, the bigger you go, the less competition you will have. But the problem is, the bigger you go, the more investment you need. So yeah,
That is interesting. I never thought of it like that. So
yeah,
basically, like making sure that you don't have competitors and you are able
yeah,
to source it at a very low cost.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is
So,
it.
and also, when I started working, I was like, we used to work for, like, there was one brand that used to sell robot vacuum cleaners. So and I found it like uh, uh, they gave that was my first account that they gave me when I started working in the Amazon space. So if you like, the product would cost like $600, and
Mhm.
if you spend like $100, it's still six ROAS when you sell it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty interesting for me as well. And also the person who was building it, or who was selling it, the founder of it, they had so much margin that they were not thinking about it, or they were not worried about it that much. So yeah, but you have to do it correctly. That's the problem.
That is so true. And do you also work in different marketplaces as well, like Walmart and?
No, not on Walmart. I have done some like the WordPress and Shopify, like for the clients that have that. Other than that, I have not worked on other marketplaces. Yep.
Mhm. And before,
What about you? Like, if you had to, launch a product, where would you go?
I've also thought a lot about it. So as XENA Intelligence, we have raised $1.5 million in VC funding.
Awesome.
And obviously we had to raise because I started from nothing, and so it was good that I received so much support. So I was thinking like maybe I can use a part of the funding to launch a new brand. One, of course, to launch it. Second, we can use that as a test um, sandbox to test out new ideas, new strategies without having to test it out on competitors. So that is how I began initially, right? So what I was also interested to learn how to sell. So obviously, and this was 3 years ago, I went to Alibaba. I'm like, okay, I need to sell something. It can't be food. It has to be low cost. It has to
Yeah.
be unique. I couldn't find any, and so then there was a search results which said you can sell wallets. So I'm like, wallets is very
Yeah.
competitive. Like, how can you possibly sell? And so there are like these steel wallets with, it looks like Ridge wallets right now. So you can put
Yeah.
in cards and stuff like. So I'm like, okay, screw it. Let me just test it out and see how it works. So then I bought, I bought like 20 or some insanely low number. I didn't know anything about e-commerce. When I placed the order, I waited and waited and waited, and they're like, oh, it'll take 3 months for the
Yeah.
ship. Like, are you kidding me right now? And then I found out the shipping cost was more than the cost of the wallets itself.
No.
And that was when I learned, like, managing a brand requires a certain skill set that is not related to technology or PPC management or listing. It requires a whole different skill set. But having said that, so that's
Yeah.
when I learned immediately. And so I also realized that the low cost is a very important factor.
Yeah.
So either acquired in the US or in India, whatever the product is, it needs to be low cost. That needs to be enough volume, search volume.
Yeah. Enough volume. Yeah.
Interesting. It is very hard. I can't think of one product that will fit that has not already been done. But if I do launch a new product, I would probably do it in the sustainable space, because I've seen that customers where we manage sustainable based products, they can charge a little bit higher
Yeah.
premium
Yeah.
for their products. So they're not competing with the Chinese competitors necessarily. And
Yeah.
that premium will help them offset a lot of FBA fees and shipping fees and inventory fees and returns and all this increasing fees that are coming. So I'll probably launch something in the sustainability space. Is my thinking. But since you mentioned about the localized high
Yeah.
ticket volume, maybe something related to sustainable
Yeah.
launcher. I don't know. I don't know, maybe it could be a good idea.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. Yeah, and also like last year, what I thought was in 2024 I'm gonna launch my own brand. So I had like I shortlisted some products, and I went to some of my seniors that have helped me previously. So I went to one of them and I asked him like uh, the plan is to launch my own product and sell it on Amazon and stuff like that. And he was like, okay, take pen and paper. And I actually had to take pen and paper. And he was like, okay, tell me the risk factors. I had to write down the risk factors, and then he told me, okay, and you are doing services business as well as on Sadal, so write down the those risk factors. And I wrote it down. He was like, this is where you put your money into, rather than starting this one as well. So I was like, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think even Stephen Pope from My Amazon Guy, he also launched the product. Did not, I think it got shut down, or I think he sold it.
Yeah, yeah,
But that it is not his, even though he's
yeah,
the expert, he does not want to do that
yeah,
specifically. He'd rather help others than do it himself,
yeah.
which was interesting.
because I was also thinking that for the services business and for especially on the intelligence side or on the technology side, technology software, you have an advantage of because we understand it in a way that we know we can survive in that space, and we are actually built for that space. Not everything is for everyone, so yeah.
I also think that if you launch a brand, you'll get very emotionally attached with
Yeah,
your brand. People are buying or not buying, and if somebody
yeah,
returns it, you get hurt. I think that
yeah,
it's like doctors don't treat their own family members because they're too emotionally
yeah.
attached. I think it's the same situation
That
with
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
where we cannot take pure emotional decisions. We have to stand out and take decisions that is best for the brand.
Okay, Akhil, since we have reached almost the ending of our podcast, because 45 minutes, I do have a very personal question to you, and that is, uh, how did the technology evolution start in India? Because we see a lot of startups, and uh, everyone is from India. Everyone that you see in technology space is from India. So how did it start? Like I'm to be very I'm very curious, because it takes a lot of time, but yeah, how did it start?
You mean to say that, like, a lot of the CEOs
Yeah,
and
yeah,
managers? I think I was seeing a podcast. I think it was Patrick Bet Davis or some podcast. So he put out a graphic where it showed that the average salary of immigrants in the US. So you have Indian Americans, India Chinese, regular Americans, and the Indian Americans apparently at the highest per capita
yeah.
salary
Income, yeah,
income.
yep,
So then he started talking. Like, he was not an Indian; he was from here. So he said
yep,
that probably the reason is because in India and Asia, in specifically, there is a lot of emphasis on education. There is a
yep,
lot of emphasis on learning. There's a lot of emphasis on taking as less risk as possible. That includes moving abroad. I think in Asia, it is considered a typically a successful step to take, where you are given an opportunity to study or move abroad to grow yourself. And so, since there's a lot of immigration happening to countries like US, Canada, and even Middle East, where people think that they're very lucky to be there, people think they're grateful to be there. So maybe perhaps there is emphasis on doing the best possible in their studies, education, job, where their focus remains on doing the best possible, even if it means sacrificing time with the family, even if it means making sure that you don't spend a lot of time doing leisurely activities. I think because
yeah,
of that focus, I think there is a small advantage that Asian immigrants get in countries like the US, where they're given that small advantage, where they're given more responsibility, more job opportunities, and more responsibility. I think that is why there's a lot of Asians in the US that are placed very well, in especially in the technology sector.
yeah. Makes a lot of sense as well. And I think on like, to be very honest, what I think is it's a bit goofy as well, and that is, I think in technology we are allowed to create stuff. So when you are given that freedom of creativity, you are able to think of things, and you are able to make, because otherwise if person is creating stuff on other things, it's a bit hard. But on technology you can think of anything, and my teacher used to say for C++ that if you can think it, you can make it. There is no question that you cannot make it. You can make it, and that's kind of pushes the person to go further, and kind of thing. Because if you are talking about wood and or other things, or other, for example, steel or other industries, you're not able to create kind of stuff. If you are on technology, you can do it, I think, a little bit better. I might be wrong in it. I might not be able to explain it properly, but yeah, that's
No,
my
that makes
opinion.
sense. That makes sense. Like, once you have the basic knowledge, once you are given a platform or encouraged to do something new, I
Yeah,
think that's it's like a natural progression. And plus, I think in the Asian, at least especially South Asian community, there is a strong sense of community as well, like teamwork,
yeah,
family, where when you build something on you, when you're working on something, you want or you motivate others to support you as well. I think that also plays a role in improving the probability of success in doing, like, succeeding in whatever that you're working with.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right. Okay, so Akhil, since it's the end of the podcast, I have three questions for you. One is, what's your tip for the person who is starting his own software technology company?
I think one is,
Second is,
oh, sorry.
yeah, and second is, what's your tip for the person who is starting his Amazon brand? And the third one is who is, newly immigrating. Yeah, these three.
Same advice for all three, I would say. Yeah, I'm sure you and everyone else would give the same advice. Keep learning. It is
Yeah,
probably not the hardest. Like initially, it's exciting. Oh, what is CPC? What is ROAS? Oh, wow. But then after a while, both of us might feel that, oh, we know everything. Like, oh, we are the
yeah,
best in the world. Then there's something new that happens. We're like,
yeah,
oh, we have no idea what is
yeah.
sponsored TV ads. Like, how does that even work?
I was gonna say that, like,
That's and so then I think, and another reason like why people who succeed are that they're open to learning new things.
yeah,
They won't have ego where, oh yeah, I'm the best in the world. No, 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 no. There are a lot of
yeah,
things you don't know, and there are a lot of things you could be wrong on, and that you try to
yeah,
make it better. So even if you're building a technology or getting into Amazon or an immigrant, I think that sense of learning or wanting to learn should always be there. Sometimes it gets hard. It is easy to get ego. It is easy to think that you're
yeah,
better than others, but in reality, it's that sense of learning should always be there.
yeah. Thank you so much, Akhil, for coming on the podcast. Take
Thanks.
care.
Thanks.